Hello YouTubers, welcome to my review of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This was always meant to be my first review on my new channel. It has been long overdue. I had hoped to release this video in the spring along with the movie, but a lot of stuff got in the way, and I still think it's relevant, especially with all these new Mario games coming out over the next couple weeks, and especially given that a lot of my written work on my written website pertains to Mario reviews. So if you're interested in details of what my reviews entail, a deeper description can be found in the link below in my introduction. But the brass tacks is there are 15 narrative tenets that I will be using to review this movie, and I will be giving each tenet a color ranking based on how well I feel like the movie did that tenet. And then at the end of the review, I will kind of average out the color rankings to give a sort of overall review of the movie. Now, in terms of the public eye, I think it's worth just beginning with, all you have to do is look at the Rotten Tomatoes score for the Mario movie to sort of understand where the movie has fallen in the sort of general cultural consensus. And when you see numbers that disparate, that usually means something. Why are the critics lukewarm on it, and why do audiences love it? And I think that sort of mixed but lean positive is somewhere where I lean as well. But without further ado, let's simply get started. So the first tenet is levels of scale. And for that I'll give the movie a green, because on some level I would like to give the movie a blue, because the two most important aspects of levels of scale, which are sort of creating the feel of the Mushroom Kingdom's dimension being inside our ordinary world, which is represented by Brooklyn, that's done very, very well. But at the same time, I thought there was an opportunity to expand this aspect of scale by showing more of the worlds beyond the Mushroom Kingdom, but within the same dimension. So basically, outside the first act, I felt like the rest of the scale and locations kind of blend together, which is fine. But given that we've seen the Mario franchise execute this concept better in Paper Mario, Mario Galaxy, even traditional Mario 64, green feels more appropriate. It's not bad, it's actually good, but I do feel a touch of a missed opportunity here. Next up is strong centers, and for this I do give the movie a blue, because I feel like the movie is basically executing triple duty here. On some level, the strong center could be Brooklyn, which is the origin of Mario and Luigi, and the place we return to for the final confrontation. It also could be Peach's Castle, which is given proper build-up and exposition to feel like a strong center once Mario arrives in the Mushroom Kingdom. But more so, I feel the strong center of this movie is the bond between Mario and Luigi, which is a concept I've honestly only seen executed this strongly in Mario fanfiction. Like, if anyone knows the old Newgrounds series, like Super Mario Bros. Z or Power Star, maybe the Mario and Luigi franchise has elements of this done well, but this movie is the first time I've seen the Mario and Luigi relationship really feel like the centerpiece of the story. With a little more time to expand this world and thus really nail down the feeling of Peach's Castle being our found center, I'd bump this up to a purple, in all honesty. You'll see this feeling of wanting to bump to a purple come up later in this review. But given that some of the surrounding tissue is haphazard, I can't really do that for this tenet, but for nailing the most important aspect of the world and characters and making them feel centered, this movie deserves a blue here. Boundaries is next, and I give that a green. Similar to levels of scale, again, at the highest level, I feel like this aspect is excellent. You feel the boundary of our ordinary world versus the Mushroom Kingdom's world. You feel the difference of space between Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom and Luigi being stuck in the Darklands. But beyond this aspect, Similar to how Game of Thrones characters feel like they're able to fast travel to wherever they need to be in the later seasons, after the first act, it begins to feel like the micro boundaries are non-existent. Movie nails the more significant and macro boundaries, and that averages out, I feel, to a green as opposed to a white, but similar to levels of scale, it definitely could have been more. Alternating repetition. Yeah, this one I do have to give a white, because I think the first act of the movie nails the necessary build-up. This is brought on by we get introduced to Bowser finding the Power Star in a moment that feels right out of a classic Indiana Jones movie or Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we cycle back to our ordinary world for a little bit. And then once Mario and Luigi enter the pipe, we get some back and forth of seeing Luigi wandering closer and closer to the lion's den while Mario gets closer and closer to Peach. And this is also good contrast, and it's good build-up. And then after this, I would have liked to have seen Luigi get more to do. There's more on that in a little bit. As the second act build-up just doesn't feel as strong as the first act. I wouldn't necessarily say bad. I mean, the build-up to Mario meeting Donkey Kong interspersed with Bowser's yearning for Peach is decent, but it doesn't pop as much as the first act. And the reason I give this movie a white here as opposed to an overall good green is because this is an area which I don't necessarily feel comes back around to the overall good in the third act either, because the entire stuff is kind of just thrown together in a final confrontation, and that's a result of not really building up the side plots to feel powerful enough to stand with the main plot. So my choice here is white. You can disagree, you can feel like it's better than that and is a green, but my choice here is white. Positive space. This one I give a green. Like many other Mario games, the Mario aesthetic contrasted against the backgrounds of your environments very much help Mario pop, and especially given the context of an ordinary world setting at first, gives even more weight to the popping colors. There's nothing really overtly new here in terms of the color scheme, but it's not a fault for the movie to lean into a strength that the franchise has always had. The positive space for the Mushroom Kingdom versus the negative space of Bowser's Lands, again, very good. I'm not exactly sure where this space can wholly be tied to a theme of the never quitting, which I'll get to in a moment. I feel like it's done well. I feel like there's aspects of negative space the movie could have played with more, but that I'll get more to in contrast, and for right now I'll give positive space a green. Good shape. Here we get to another blue, because we have our standard Mario archetype of power-ups, changing our protagonist's future and build while also gaining new abilities. Again, with the positive shape there, that's nothing really new. But this time around, this aspect is linked to the theme, because throughout the movie we are given the same quote, the people looking at Mario and saying, you just never know when to quit, do you? Which is first used to disparage him. And then midway through, Peach says it as a means of sort of begrudging acceptance. But then by the end, it's a means of empowerment. And you link this to the good shapes that the power-ups bring, and thus you have the movie's theme linked with visual symbolism that then is linked to the, quote, good shape that the quote comes to embody over the course of the movie, which is linked to the main hero. And that's good stuff right there. And I feel like that's more than deserving of a blue. Local symmetries. White, again. The interesting thing about this category is that on the micro level, the game has a lot of symmetries, like in the way that Mario and Donkey Kong are given a kind of parallelism of sort of being a sort of gruff characters who need to find their peace with each other in order to work together. And of course, Mario and Luigi will always have their symmetries. But do you think compared to other games in the franchise that really take advantage of local symmetries with different enemies and different characters that are like symmetrically close to enemies but not like them, or in case of Rosalina has somewhat of a local symmetry with Peach. Like, there's a lot of meat in this franchise that pertains to local symmetries, and outside of a couple micro elements there, in this movie, who's the local symmetry to Bowser? Like, not really anyone. So I'd say this is also a missed opportunity, as there is more of a focus on showing new aspects of the world rather than comparisons that get fleshed out at all. The aforementioned mini character ones, I say save this movie from a yellow, but a white still feels accurate. Deep Interlock is next, also white, and we'll see what the sequel does with this, as outside the Power Star being teased in the beginning and then becoming important in the final act, I wouldn't necessarily say that a lot of motifs or plot beats return on themselves to then serve greater importance. That was something I mentioned in the alternating repetition too. I did like that the subtle suggestion that Mario learning the obstacle course outside Peach's castle helped him navigate the terrain in Bowser's castle in the final act, but a lot of the abilities introduced lean on just intertextuality for fans of the series, like, whoa, Mario's a cat. Okay. Like, it's just flat out craziness without a whole lot of explanation, which is great, but as a standalone, that makes them feel like one-offs. The Mario Brothers and Peach's backstories are only touched on once. The blue shell motif is only used once, as is the ice flower, the cat suit, Tanuki suit. There are moments, which is why I'd say save it from a yellow, but I would not call this aspect of the movie a strength. Contrast. I debated bumping this to a blue, as I liked the contrast shown between our ordinary world and the Mushroom Kingdom's world, as well as the contrast between Bowser's Darklands and the Mushroom Kingdom itself. But at the same time, this is a green, by the way, I think with more screen time, the movie could have leaned even more into the contrast between Mario and Luigi, which I feel it really only touched on, or the contrast between the way Peach runs her kingdom versus the kingdoms in control that are under Bowser's control, or how the Kongs run their kingdom. It's there on the surface, but I think it is surface. There's no real heavy contrast between many of the worlds except for the visual ones, and the ones on the highest level, which is why I give it a green as opposed to a white, but I can't go more than that. Graded variation. Also green. I think on some level, I can see a scenario in giving the movie a blue on this, because the aspects and stakes of the adventure genuinely do change. At first, Mario and Luigi are simply trying to prove themselves, then it's a quest for them to try to reunite interspersed with the threat of Bowser using the Power Star for world domination purposes. Then it shifts to Mario learning to help Peach and obtain the Kong army, whilst also beginning to accept the fact that his never-quit attitude is a strength. And at the same time, we realize that Bowser isn't trying to use the Power Star to take over the world, he's using it to impress Peach. And then the movie is able to push the vast majority of these elements to their conclusion in the final act. But at the same time, at least for me personally, I wanted some more payoff than what we got. I wanted to see the Kong army actually be used. I wanted to see a greater danger for the threat of the innocent Toad citizens. I wanted to see a greater impact on the world at large based on the things Mario has and hasn't done. Plus, though the movie indeed managed to juggle several different shifting goals, I could also argue that they shifted a little too quickly. So all in all, it gets props for at least doing this kind of stuff, but loses points for being a little all over the place and for not leaning more into the impact of the world. Alright, here we get to when I talked about purple in Strong Centers, and here we get to it again. Because for roughness, I do give this movie a purple. And some could argue that this is a stretch. None of the roughness present in the movie breaks the mold, or is earth-shattering in any way. But I'll say it plainly, the movie gets Mario and Luigi. It gets Peach. It gets Bowser. It even gets Toad and Donkey Kong. Bowser and Peach aren't wholly different from some other Mario games that have, quote, gotten them in portraying Bowser, yes, as menacing, but as a lovesick blowhard at his core, whilst also portraying Peach as vulnerable but with strength and respect from her people and within herself in her own right. I thought the try-hard Toad personality and the brash but well-meaning DK personality were also spot on. All would be deserving of a blue, especially given that the Peach personality is the one that I think fans like the most. Like, we like, quote, Paper Mario Peach as opposed to Damsel in Distress Peach, in which she actually gets stuff to do. But what brings this movie up to a purple for me is that I think for the first time in the entirety of mainstream Mario canon, we actually give our protagonist a character arc. And you think about that for a moment. When in any other Mario story has Mario actually received a character arc in going from a reluctant supporter to an accepting hero, all based around this evolution of the same never quit quote? And you add on to that fact that the movie also gets Luigi, even though I wish he had gotten more to do in the second act. But the fact that he'll never be as strong as Mario, but he is his greatest supporter, and this is the moment in the movie when I got a tear to my eye, because in the final act, when Luigi protects Mario long enough for them both to get the Power Star, that's when I realized it's like, okay, the movie gets these characters, and it should, but Nintendo fans have said that before, and I feel this movie really did actually get them. And we've wanted to see the characters represented like this for a long time. And maybe this is my own bias. Maybe it's the fact that I've loved the franchise for decades. And I'm not going to even talk about doing a rainbow or anything, but maybe it deserves more of a blue. But I feel like, given the context of the Mario universe, this is beautiful work, and that is what gives this tenet a purple for me. Echoes. Green. Again, I think the echoes that are present here are the echoes we expect. The Mushroom Kingdom is an echo of Peach. Darklands are an echo of Bowser. The ordinary world that is transformed is an echo of Mario and Luigi. None of it is really full-on special, like some of the above categories. I wouldn't call it bad, sort of like Positive Space. It's like the Mario world. It's been done before, but it's done well. Just as always, green. Alrighty. Void. Alright, here goes my first yellow. Because on some level, I could give this movie brownie points for suggesting that Mario and Luigi being separated is an aspect of the void, and that's the central void that needs to be fixed, but that feels more of a not separateness thing than a void thing. And otherwise, I feel like the macro threats of other voidy feelings the movie touches on are kind of pretty minimal. You were told early on that Bowser is more lovesick than threatening, and even when Peach is, even in the third act, I, of course, didn't really believe that anyone was really going to be hurt. But I thought there were opportunities there to lean more into more voidy feelings. So, like in the second act, I would have loved to have seen Luigi and the other prisoners. Maybe they attempt a potential escape arc that doesn't go well. Maybe not, maybe they just bond and talk more, but like, the movie could have leaned more into that. It would have, I think, improved some of the alternating repetition as well, and given a deeper feeling of despair if this attempt failed, alongside the Mario and DK being blown off Rainbow Road. And then this might be the biggest thing for me, which is that I really wanted some of that Kong army to make it over to the Mushroom Kingdom side with Peach. So then it feels like at least there's a choice to stand down as a way to avoid bloodshed rather than a requirement. Like, instead, Peach is standing there by herself with one Toad. So, yeah, like, there's no way that that can even be thought about as one. So, basically, any feelings of hopelessness there in the end of the second act, I felt were manufactured. And I feel like some other choices by the movie to lean more into these voidy feelings, combined with wishing to have seen more of Bowser's impact on sort of innocent lands as well. Like, that's the reason I give it a yellow, because I feel like the baseline elements were kind of that's which would make it a white, but there's also specific moments that I think were actually like, that I didn't like. So it's not movie breaking, it's not like I don't have a bad taste in my mouth after watching it, but it's like, I really wanted that to be better. So, yellow. Intercom. Green. Similar to when I talked about graded variation, I give the movie some props and how the plots evolve, and there is some emergent change in learning new abilities and exposition, and the context of the never quit quote. Even though it's more surface than complex, and like I said with graded variation, I think some of these shifts are a little haphazard, but it's there, and definitely not a blue, but I'd say more than a white, so green. Not separateness, though, is blue, because even though the second act did feel haphazard, you still did feel like the world was connected. You still did feel like Rainbow Road was a shortcut to get to the Mushroom Kingdom, that Bowser had taken control of areas of the greater world. We didn't really lean into them, but it was there. Plus, add on to the fact that our world and the Mushroom Kingdom felt not separate, also deserve props. Again, though, the main reason this is getting a blue and not a green is because of Mario and Luigi. We spend enough time with them in the first act to feel the pain of them being separated. So then when they finally do come together in the end, you feel the satisfaction, complete with each of them accepting their character arcs and roles. So despite some hiccups along the way, that core centerpiece, similar to what I said about the strong centers, I'd say blue is deserved here. Alright, so that is my thoughts on the different nature of order tenets on this movie. And so, to review, we have levels of scale, green, strong centers, blue, boundaries, green, alternating repetition, white, positive space, green, good shape, blue, local symmetries, white, deep interlock, white, contrast, green, graded variation, green, roughness, purple. Echoes, green, the void, yellow, intercom, green, not separateness, blue. And then overall, I think if I add up all these components together, I would give this movie one of my in-between color rankings, which is green-blue. And I think maybe on paper, adding up all these together kind of could be a straight-out balanced green for the most part, except for that purple roughness that is pulling it towards the higher levels. And that feels indicative. The movie, especially in the second act, is very haphazard. It does sacrifice chances to push the emergent aspects of the world building. Could have gone for a greater gut punch at the end of the second act, and it could have gone for deeper secondary characters, and I think the movie sacrificed those for the sake of a leaner runtime and a more kid-friendly tone. But the movie takes its time in the first act to set up the macro levels of the world and characters to at least feel the stakes and enough connection to feel invested. And most importantly, I think the movie gets its central characters, even Mario, who up until now feels like he's never gotten a proper character arc outside of Mario fanfiction. And for that, despite some of its tonal and world-building aspects being all over the place, I think the movie deserves more praise than tepidity. And therefore I say it's green baseline, but pull it slightly higher up. Green-blue. And there we go. And also as part of these reviews, I like to list my color memories of highlights of the movie, and I'm gonna list those here. And my memories of the movie, what I do with this aspect is I only list the memories that feel blue or higher. So for this movie, straight blue memories. Bowser takes the Power Star. I felt like it was a nice introduction to the movie and set it up for at least having some threat. The Brooklyn backstory, that sets up the rest of the movie and gives Mario and Luigi enough time to feel invested. And then Bowser's changing stakes, which I think is represented by the Peaches song. Like, it was well done, and I feel like that's the movie getting Bowser. He goes from this real threat to this lovesick blowhard. Like, it did sacrifice some of the voidy stuff, but, you know, that is also who Bowser is. So, that's good. My sort of purple memories, or light purple memories, is Mario and Luigi are separated, because I thought that crystallized that feeling of them being the center and the not separateness, and now you've just created the stakes of wanting to see them get back together. And then the fact that Peach is the one to initially fight back and save the prisoners, like, she did that not knowing if Mario was even going to show up. And even though I felt like her stand at the end of the second act was a little manufactured, this one I liked. And I felt like that was the movie indicative of getting Peach as a character. So that's a light purple. And then the alternating introduction of both Peach's castle and the Darklands, that's the contrast, that's like linking the strong center and the echoes, and like, well done. And the movie takes enough time with both of them, Luigi slowly getting closer to the Lion's Den and Mario getting close to Peach. That's a full, like, I think 20-minute segment of the movie, and it really did its time with it. And then my high purple memories of the movie, of which there are two. Luigi protects Mario, and Mario accepts his moniker. And that's right there, the moments are pretty much back-to-back in the movie. But that's the movie getting Mario and Luigi, and that's the center of the movie. You're connected to your core theme, it's connected to that quote. That makes the movie, at least for me, is those two moments back-to-back, and elevates it beyond just general stuff. And so that's my review of the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm glad I saw it. I would see it again. I look forward to the sequel. For those who haven't saw it, I do recommend checking it out on streaming. And I look forward to seeing all new Mario content coming up in the near future. I haven't played Mario Wonder yet, and I look forward to Mario RPG remake coming out. I might actually do a review on that at some point. And, you know, of course I look forward to the Thousand Year Door remake coming out next year. But for those who may have come from my written website, I said before, I was looking forward to this movie, but was somewhat quietly concerned because I felt like the movie had a potential to lean into the characters and lean into the genre, but also worried it might be haphazard. And it kind of did both, but I feel like the pros outweigh the negative. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the other side. Cheers.